Buckle up, Buttercup. I don't know if you saw that recent video that was released by Eric Burlison, Representative Eric Burlison, and there was a UFO or a UAP congressional hearing on Tuesday where a lot of information was disclosed and a video was released, recently declassified, that shows this tic-tac type UAP just hauling through the sky. And there's a drone that's recording this, and a Hellfire missile hits it. A Hellfire missile slams into this UAP. It looks like it breaks into a few different pieces, and it all flies in the same direction, and it continues to fly. So we're going to look at the entire video. It's about 50 seconds. But ladies and gentlemen, look who it is. Richard Lawrence from the Aetherius Society. I think you've been a guest twice so far on the, this will be the third time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Great shows. Great to see you. How are you doing?
It's great to be back, Rex, and it's great to talk to you and all your wonderful viewers out there. All going good, all going very good. But this was an absolute shocker, this release right in Congress, as you say there. The source isn't known. Even the Representative Burlison didn't know the source. But you know, these whistleblowers, they get treated so badly, some of them. I mean, there are even reports of them being killed. So never mind having their lives ruined, that a lot of this stuff, it just comes to someone like Burlison. He put it out in Congress. There were military, Air Force, US Air Force and Navy personnel present. They all said it scared them. They took it very, very seriously. But I won't say more. I'll let you show the clip.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're going to get into the details here in a minute, folks, but I want to show you the video here. It's quite fascinating. Let me pull this up. I think I'll just open it up from X directly. So here we go. All right, here's the post. Here is the footage. And let me make the screen larger here. Check this out. Here we go. Okay, so they're tracking this object. That's actually the end. Let's start at the very beginning. So here we go. You can see it looks kind of has that tic-tac look to it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, this could be Lockheed Martin technology. Some whistleblowers came out and said, this is an alien, this is ours. Maybe it's reverse engineered from an ET craft. Maybe it's both. Maybe, I mean, I don't know.
I'd say not, but
okay.
Yeah, definitely not.
Boom!
Bang.
And
hit
then they're
it
all
smack, and it was like a pebble on a car.
Weird. Like how is, so I'm thinking of that technology that is in the earlier stages, at least what they're showing publicly, where this technology, it's like smart metal. You can rip it apart and then it goes back together, like Terminator, the T-1000. I wonder if it's that same type of technology, because it does look like it breaks into pieces.
Can there you go. There it is. And it didn't, I mean, I think it's an abomination, by the way, that they would fire a Hellfire missile at a peaceful, clearly a peaceful, I would say extraterrestrial craft. We have to be careful because the provenance of this footage isn't known. It was given to Burlison. I'm half expecting, Rex, somebody to come along and deny it or say it's fake, or some, the Pentagon to come up with some debunking thing. But the footage is there, and no one was disputing it in Congress. I mean, I don't know about you. I was watching it as it was revealed. And this is describes a Hellfire missile. Now, Hellfire missile, as I understand it, can destroy any known tank on Earth. It was sent, it wasn't a land to air missile. It was sent by a drone. And they call it an NQ-9 drone. So one drone was monitoring it. That's what we see the film of. The other drone fired at it. There were two drones, and it didn't have any impact at all. It threw it off course temporarily, and on it went. And this is a shocker. Well, I mean, this could be one of the reasons they cover it up, all this stuff, because it exposes the frailty, the pathetic vulnerability, I would call it, of all arms on this earth. The finest arsenal in the world, can't produce a missile that even scratches an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Now, I mean, I was actually, I worked with a man called Dr. George King, as I think you know, and I co-authored his last book. He was a contactee. There are a lot of claims out there. I don't believe them all, but I certainly believe in his claims. And we published a book. I co-authored it with him. It was the last book he published in his lifetime. It was published in 1996. Can I read you just 2 sentences out of that, Rex?
Please, absolutely.
The book's called Contacts with the Gods from Space. Contacts with the Gods from Space. And people can check this out. And this is what he said. And this is based on his contacts. About craft, he said, they're protected by a force field which is intensified in direct relation to the velocity of the craft. This force field is magnetic in nature. No material body could actually come into contact with the hull of the vessel while the force field is in operation. The force field protects the vessel and the occupants from atmospheric friction. So that, I would say, assuming this is a genuine piece of footage, and most people seem to take it as such, and I've got no particular reason to disbelieve this. I mean, I know of cases where they attempted to fire missiles at extraterrestrial spacecraft before, in the 70s. I've got the documents. It's published in one of my books, the full CIA document. But as soon as they tried to fire the missile, their weapons control panel went dead. They couldn't do it. So what we're seeing here is a superior technology that isn't really disputed in several respects, but this is one respect. And also we're seeing people who were behind that craft, they were either manning it or controlling it, who are completely peaceful, because what didn't they do? They didn't retaliate.
That's right.
I think a lot of people, if they were fired at by a Hellfire missile, might get a bit annoyed.
Yeah, you think?
No. Yeah.
Great point. And so I'm reading through the comments here, and just real quick, folks, I want to thank everybody for being here with us. And I think it would be awesome if you could give us just a brief introduction again, Richard, for those that haven't heard of you, and tell us a little bit about the Aetherius Society. But somebody in the comments said this footage is older than is really old. No, it's not. This footage just came out on Tuesday. This is pretty much hot off the press. It's Friday now.
Exactly. Lots of people like to, no disrespect, but I mean, come up with stuff, and it may be true, may not. But this was revealed for the first time on Tuesday in Congress to Democrat and Republican senators not senators, representatives. I've got to get my American politics right. I'm in London, folks, at the moment. Nice. But they are being lied to. Elected representatives of your country, they are being lied to, and they say it quite openly. They are being blocked by unelected people in government. I mean, this is what Leak Project, as I understand it, is all about: getting the truth out there. Freedom of speech, and these people are just revealing it. Now, it seems as though the person who sent this clip to Burlison is a whistleblower. We don't have the exact provenance of that. And that's something that we can't know. But it looks very convincing. And as I say, it's not the first time. But anyway, I'm sorry, you asked me a question. My name's Richard Lawrence. I'm secretary of the Aetherius Society. I've written many books. Among them was the one I just mentioned. I also wrote a book called UFOs and the Extraterrestrial Message, which is out there, which includes documentation from the CIA, documentation from the former Soviet Union, which shows that governments have known about this for decades. Now, the Aetherius Society was founded in 1955 by Dr. George King, so it's 70 years old. He passed on in 1997. I was very close to him. We were very close friends. We were in touch every day, either for the last 20 years of his life, either in person or on the phone and so forth. Not by internet in those days, but we were in regular contact. And I know him to be a genuine contactee. And I don't say that lightly, because there's lots and lots of claims out there. What marks him out, I think, is his assertion right from the beginning and right throughout his life that he was in contact with beings from this solar system. As a matter of fact, if people go and look at my podcast, which is called The Spiritual Freedom Show. It's not a big podcast like yours, Rex. It's a small podcast for people who are interested. It's called the Spiritual Freedom Show. And right at the top of the most popular videos is a video about that very thing, extraterrestrial life in this solar system. But what he always said, of course, was that that life might not be visible, might not be detectable to us, but you can find it. Well, let's put it this way. It is there. You might find it. And if they don't want you to find it, you won't find it. But this is the thing that really marks Dr. King out, I think, as a contactee, because I've noticed most contactees will be Orion or claimed, Pleiades, somewhere way out there, you know, somewhere. The beings that are most interested in our welfare are the beings in this solar system, and they, with all the greatest possible respect, they don't need massive help in looking after the affairs of this solar system from way out there in space. They are the ones who are most concerned about what's going on this Earth, the dangers on this Earth, the nuclear dangers on this Earth. So throughout his life from then on, he received regular communications. He was in regular contact. Actually, was on call for 24 hours a day. I mean, I've been with him. I was with him at the moment that Chernobyl happened. Before Chernobyl, and I was with him in Arizona, just about a very short time, I mean, less than 5 hours before it happened, he was alerted. He wasn't told it would be Chernobyl. He was told in other cases of details, provable ones about locations, but he was alerted to the need for energy to be sent out in cooperation with extraterrestrial craft. So this is just an example. He was going off and he couldn't leave because he was on call for this catastrophe, which the world as a whole didn't know about for several days. He was already in action, and later in 2002, so that was 86 I'm talking about, so 16 years later, Pravda published the fact that there'd been a UFO hovering over Chernobyl when it happened, which minimized the accident fourfold. It was terrible, but it would have been infinitely worse, affecting the world as a whole in a terrible manner. And this is partly the kind of work that he was engaged in. So the Aetherius Society has gone on, though, from strength to strength. It's carried on. It continues to this day. And I don't think, from the best of my knowledge, there's another contactee from that period who has a movement that's still flourishing now. As a matter of fact, I met a couple of them. I met Dr. Frank Stranges when he was older, and I met Dan Fry when he was an old man. But and even Adamski, people from that period, they don't have thriving movements. So there really isn't anyone in the world to compare with Dr. King. He doesn't claim to be the only contactee, by the way, not at all. He's never said that, but I certainly think he's the most significant one, in my opinion, that I know of. And I would recommend people to look into him.
So did you have any idea how big this thing is, or did they report that in the hearing?
They didn't give the size or the speed, actually. You see, Burlison, who revealed it, he didn't know much. He just received this, and he was really showing it publicly for the first time. What was interesting, though, is you had one or two witnesses there from, as I mentioned, there are other military police, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy, very senior officers, and they were familiar. They didn't question it at all. I mean, and they knew this was, they absolutely asserted, or it was generally accepted, it seems to me, that this was a Hellfire missile. But no, to answer your question, the size, the speed, those kind of details, I don't think are even known to Burlison, but they may be examining the tape now.
So I want to look at this again, because it appears that when the missile hits it, that it breaks, that it either breaks into pieces or decoys come out. It kind of reminds me.
It doesn't break into pieces. It continues on, but some energy.
Yeah, you see these three guys, and then these three things start following it.
Yes.
They look like little miniature craft.
They do. Almost. They could be craft, or they could be energy, some kind of energy that it seems to reabsorb into itself from what little one can glean from this.
That's common in a lot of UFO sightings, where people will see what appears to be multiple orbs turn into one craft.
Yes, they'll split up and then they'll join together, won't they?
Yeah.
But you know, this is sensational because of the footage, but there are other sensational features of these craft. So it's quite possible that one of the reasons for this cover-up, which has gone on and still goes on, it's far from over. I mean, this is just some very well-intended, you know, representatives of the House. And by the way, I'm criticizing the American government. The British government, where I am here, is far worse. And there are other governments around the world. They're all looking into it. Russia, China, all of them. Occasionally somebody steps out, like the head of the space agency in Israel stepped out. Eshed was his name. And he basically said that it's well known by Trump and by everyone that these craft exist, that they are friendly, that there's a galactic federation, that they will come among us in the future. So, you know, we just get little bits here and there. Obama let something drop, Clinton let something drop, people over in Britain the same. But we haven't had a full disclosure. But I think one of the problems is that governments don't know the full answers. They don't really know. What they do know is that these craft have such superior technology. I mean, I'll name a couple of other things. Invisibility. They have the power to disappear, as far as we're concerned, and reappear. They have a control over matter we don't have. That too was described in this book in 1996. Some of the things that have been discovered and revealed in the last 5 years were detailed by Dr. King in that book with an explanation of how they happen. Control over gravity, transmedium. You know, Dr. King was a transmedium, but I don't mean that. Transmedium through water, through air, through land, the ability to pass through all these mediums. This is something that these craft demonstrate. They according to one admiral, told Representative Burchett that this year, these craft could travel at hundreds of miles an hour through seawater. Now, the finest submarine can't do that.
Sorry, we lost connection when you said one admiral. Can you go back to that? Because we lost connection.
According to Representative Burchett, Tim Burchett, he revealed, not in this hearing, but he's revealed earlier this year, that an admiral told him that they've detected craft underwater that could travel through seawater at hundreds of miles an hour. And that's not possible, or knots, if you like. That's not possible for any known submarine on Earth. I don't think they can reach 100 knots, never mind hundreds of knots. So that they have a superior technology. They have invisibility, they have control over gravity, they have a mind power. They can know where a US Navy jet is going, its destination, and get to that destination before the jet, the exact location. The CIA papers that I brought over and published in my other UFO book, which is called UFOs and the Extraterrestrial Message, in that book I published CIA papers where the jet chasing a spacecraft over Tehran in the 70s, when it before it actually attempted to fire the missile control panel, a missile, the weapons control panel went dead. When it got out of range of the spacecraft, so it couldn't strike it, then its weapons control panel was activated again, which shows, again, peaceful intent, no retaliation, just like some enormous, strong person tapping a little child on the head, you know, don't do that. Not doing anything to harm the child, but not letting the child hit him or her. It's actually a bit pathetic, really, the way we carry on. But I mean, the only concern, seemingly, of governments is the defense implications, as you rightly said earlier, for people like Lockheed and others, and how it can be utilized for war. And this is one of the reasons they don't come openly and land among us, because we're just not ready for them.
You know, if we had this technology, or whoever has this technology could clearly talk about air superiority, the 6th generation fighter jets that are being discussed right now have nothing on one of these things. So
nothing at all.
I mean, it's not even in the same league. And you know,
it's a joke. It's a bad joke, but it's a joke. And you know, it's one of their excuses, isn't it? I mean, this is what they sort of, this was their wheeze about 20 years ago when they started it or whatever. Suddenly, having denied it all along and lied about it and you can't cover it up when everyone's got mobile phones and they're photographing it and so on. So then they started saying, well, they actually, the Pentagon one time, I do remember this, admitted to having lied. It admitted to having lied, and it said we only lied because this was secret technology of our own. So therefore, we couldn't let you know, and that's why we lied. And then now they're trying to claim it's all part of their armory, all part of, but it isn't. They had this kind of technology. There are wars going on. You don't see anything near this being used. So of course it isn't. So this is their latest wheeze, and it's interesting because recently the Pentagon said that they've never lied about this. I think they've said it since the hearing. Since Tuesday, I think they've come out and said, no, we haven't lied. But then they admitted lying some years ago. So were they lying about lying?
No, they wouldn't do that. They love us.
It's a funny thing, actually, Rex, because I used to lecture on this in the UK and abroad, actually, in Australia, New Zealand, and a bit in America, back in the 80s, you know, when I was starting out and everything. And I remember a time, and if there's any the young people watching this, they won't believe me when I say this, but if you went out then and you said that your government is telling you the truth, they nod okay. If you went out and you said your government's lying to you, they thought you were a conspiracy nutter just for saying that.
Right.
Now, if I went out and said to young people, look, your government's telling you the truth, they're not lying to you. They think I was a bit of a nutter or a bit of a weirdo. Everybody knows now that governments lie. And this is one issue, I would say the most important issue, but it's one of the issues they've lied about, and they're still lying now.
So this is what I think is interesting. I think we should talk about this for a minute, because the government does give these soft disclosures without giving disclosure. You know, they'll have these hearings, they'll show these videos, you'll have Congress people come out and say, look at this video that was leaked to me. You can clearly see this technology is beyond anything that we have, at least publicly. And then the people behind that, the public, you know, people like us are watching that and we're like, oh, wow, okay. So is it one of ours? Is it reverse engineered alien tech? Is it extraterrestrial? You know, there's a lot of theories that go out, and if you read through social media, you can kind of get an idea of the mind of the populace around the world, at least. So, but here's what's interesting. What they don't disclose is the people that have physical abductions, or what they believe are physical abductions. And I mean, I interviewed a guy a few months ago, retired submariner, and I hope he's doing okay. I haven't heard from him in a few months, and he was having some physical stuff going on, but retired submariner. He gave me all his credentials, legit as they get. And he's been abducted much of his life. He said the only place that he didn't get abducted by these things was when he was actually in the submarine. They would take him out, even in the barracks outside of the submarine. So he said he loved being in the sub because they couldn't take him. I know other people that do aerospace work that have had almost identical experiences, and you know, they often refer to them as the Greys, but the people that I know that have had these experiences don't necessarily think that they're from Zeta Reticuli. They think that they could be a lot closer. They look at them almost like they're demonic because the experiences they have are so frightening. And then I said, well, you know, okay, maybe they're demons, maybe they're not, but like, how would an animal that was being experimented on by somebody in a laboratory, how would that lab rat or that, you know, experimented animal feel about the person that was doing experiments on it? They'd probably look at them like they were a demon. So my question is, and I want to ask you this, do you think that these Greys that abduct people, that physically take them, or mentally, and they think it's physical or spiritual, do you think they're from the same group that show these craft that, you know, that we're looking at, these Tic Tac type craft and these UFOs that don't get hurt by Hellfire missiles, at least what appears to not get?
Can yeah, it's a great question. Can I just reel back though to something you said a bit earlier, when you said that, you know, sometimes the government gives us some soft information and so on. I don't think it's out of the kindness of their hearts, by the way. They are being forced. I mean, you look at polls. I mean, I looked up one the other day. So At the moment, YouGov, as of last year, 60% of Americans believe the US government is concealing UFO data, and only 10% believe it's truthful. 10% of Americans, according to YouGov, a year ago, actually believed the governments are telling them the truth. 60% don't. So you've also got a lot of, these very, as I say, good, well-intentioned, good representatives who are pushing the government. And I don't think it would be happening otherwise. And they themselves are being blocked by, as I mentioned, unelected people somewhere behind the scenes in government who are trying to stop them. So you might say the deep state. So it's not quite as benign as it might seem. And even then, we're not getting the full truth at all. But coming to your point, I'm a little bit different from quite a few people in this field, and maybe a bit exceptional in one respect, which is that I believe that the intent of the alien beings that have contact with us on Earth in any form is benign. I don't believe it's hostile. I'm not saying there aren't hostile aliens out there. I'm sure there are, actually. But luckily, we are protected. And quite frankly, if we weren't protected, we wouldn't even be talking about it right now. If they were that, they wouldn't have any difficulty whatsoever. We've seen their technology. They've come these vast distances. They wouldn't need to be messing about with someone and abducting them and taking them away for year after year and then doing some experiment upon them. They could take over every hospital and just walk among us and occupy the planet if that's what they wanted. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm saying people are making it all up. I'm not saying that at all. These things are happening, but things have happened through the ages. You've had, frankly, let's spell it out, what used to be called dark forces. I don't know if that's the right phrase anymore, but negative forces on Earth, from Earth, by the way, with powers. And there's a great tendency now to see them necessarily as being aliens. One time they'd have been seen maybe as ghosts. At one time they might have been seen as demons or imps or what have you. They aren't necessarily extraterrestrial beings. That's my personal take on it. Because as I mentioned, these craft, when they're seen, they don't harm anybody. They don't fight back. They don't, even when they're fired at or attempted to be fired at, they don't fire back. What they're doing is they're proving their superiority, and hopefully people will investigate genuine contactees to get the answers about why they're here. And actually, the messages received by Dr. King are enlightening. They're beautiful, they're uplifting, they're very inspiring, they're very hopeful and extremely positive.
What do you think the grays are that these people have these experiences with?
Well, there are entities called the grays, that is true. But they... let's put it this way. I don't think they come from this solar system, and I think they would be the real genuine ones, if they're extraterrestrial at all, would be carefully monitored.
Because I had an experience when I was just a toddler that I can still remember almost like it was yesterday. And whatever was looking at me in my crib, they weren't human. They were definitely not human. That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about ETs, and I want to believe so much, even though I think that there's a lot of disinformation out there about the extraterrestrial phenomena. I want to get to the truth, right? Like I'm like 5 years older. I truly want to believe because I've had my own experiences, and I have family and friends that have had experiences that give me the chills. But so my experience was cool, but it was just like observation. I was looking at them. They were looking at me. I was in my crib. I wasn't even 2 years old yet. I was about a year and a half because we moved out of that house before I was 2. That's how I know. And I can still like describe the room to my parents like it was yesterday, and the door was open to the hallway and I can, but these things were looking at me and I was looking at them, and I always get fascinated thinking about it. I have no fear. I have no, they didn't take me to any craft or anything like that. I just remember we were looking at each other and that doesn't mean they were alien, but I grew up thinking that they were space aliens.
That's what happens now. We tend to think, especially growing up now. By the way, Rex, can I ask you, is there a noise? Can you hear a noise this end?
No, we're good.
Oh, good. Excellent. Okay, fine. Just want to make sure you're not getting any interference there.
But But so anyway, my experience was cool.
Yeah.
But my friends that I'm very close to that have had experiences with the Greys, like they get freaked out, man.
I'm sorry, I do apologize. We've got some noise. Could you
Weird.
go through and is something...
It's the aliens, man.
I think it might be a cleaner upstairs, actually, but we're going to try and stop that. I do apologize. Sorry, I stopped your flow there, Rex.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries at all. No problem. So anyway, I find it fascinating. Like my experience was cool. It was really cool.
Right.
But my friends and family members that have had experiences with the Greys, it scares the hell out of them. It literally scares them where you can tell, man. And one of the guys that I'm talking about in particular, he hasn't come out publicly and talked about this. He just talks to me about it off air. And I can tell by looking at his body language and everything, like he's legit, man. So I just wonder so these Tic Tacs, I wonder what these beings are like that are moving these craft, like the one that we saw where they shot a Hellfire missile at and they didn't shoot back. So do you think they're from this solar system? You were talking earlier about ETs that are a lot closer to home.
Well, not necessarily, because I think it's certainly one of the messages that Dr. King received in the 70s was from an intelligence by the name of Aetherius, hence the name of the society is named after him, or it, you could say. And he did say there'd be an increasing number of other shapes, because if you go back and you look at the old history of the subject, you'd find basically two shapes that are described: the flying saucer disc shape and the cigar shape. And particularly if you go back to 50s and 60s, that's what they were talking about. And in the early 70s, the Master Aetherius did say other craft from various places would be allowed to come into our airspace more. And since then, you've had a lot of other shapes. The Tic Tac is one. There have been more triangular shaped objects and other types of objects.
Spheres.
Funny thing, actually, back in 58 in London, before your and my time, but Dr. King held a rally, shows his credentials, actually, in one of our main squares in London called Trafalgar Square. And he did a rally for governments to tell the truth then about flying saucers, as they were called. The whole thing was about flying saucers then. And so he did that back in 58. And a couple of years ago, we marked the 65th anniversary of it in Trafalgar Square. We did some footage. We filmed all day. And that evening, my wife and I went out, as you generally do, for a walk at night. And we actually had a sighting of that flying saucer shape, which I've never had before. I've had sightings before, but never that particular shape. So I'm going off topic here a bit, but what I would say is that they will respond. I do believe they'll respond. I mean, a friend of mine has been doing some promotion this week. She hasn't been doing it for all year or even for a while, probably for years, but she's been promoting this latest clip and the truth about UFOs and so on. And this week she had a sighting. So that can happen when you really get engaged in this. It's almost like encouragement in a way. And confirmation. Every step we take towards them, they'll take two towards us. But coming to your point, these craft could come from outside the solar system, but they will be monitored by, as I mentioned earlier, the intelligences inside this solar system from planets we're told are uninhabitable, like Mars and Venus and Jupiter and etc. But they are inhabitable. They're inhabitable at a multi-dimensional level that might not be detectable to us. And that's why a lot of these craft, by the way, disappear, because they're moving from one level, one frequency, if you like, to another.
Hence the interdimensional theory.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they will be watched, and they won't be able, for example, to invade Earth, because we'd be completely helpless if they did. I mean, and I think governments know that, and that could be one reason they're lying about it. They just don't want to admit. They don't know what it's all about, and these craft make them absolutely impotent. And what government wants to say that? Right.
Absolutely. And hence another reason for people that have genuine experiences where they get abducted in their house by things they call aliens or demons or whatever they are, the government isn't going to want to disclose that, because if they can take military personnel out of the barracks and then put them back without getting caught on a regular basis, I mean, that's going to ruffle some feathers. That might be a bit alarming for some people.
As
some
I
people,
say, one has to look at all these cases very carefully, and of course there are dark forces, really to spell it out on this earth, who would like people to be frightened of aliens as well.
right.
I mean, they want to feed fear, and they wouldn't stop short of pretending. And I'm talking about people, who work for, not just people who work for governments. They used to talk about men in black, not just those, but also entities, psychic, if you like, entities, who would want to sow seeds of fear into the whole movement to cause people not to look at the real truth. And the real truth, as far as I'm personally concerned, I know a lot of people won't agree with me on this, and that's fine. But the real truth is that these are benign, advanced intelligences. If they weren't, we'd know about it. We wouldn't even be discussing it. It wouldn't be one little bit of cattle mutilation here and a few abductions there and this and that. They could just run the planet and own it. And they're not doing that. They are the sort of beings, I believe, have come from other planets. Again, forgive this is controversial, but I actually believe that Jesus came from another planet. I believe that Buddha came from another planet. Sri Krishna came from another planet in this solar system. Don't believe the Star of Bethlehem was a star. That's no star. That's another thing that everybody thinks this is only just happening now. All the traditions, the documents, and the history shows this is a long-term thing. The earliest writings we have, the Vedic scripts, are absolutely full of extraterrestrial spacecraft by the name of Vimanas. One of them, the Pushpaka Vimana, which traveled from Sri Lanka to India at least, was clearly a satellite, carried many people in it. This is nothing new at all. This has been with us through the millennia. The Bible is just full, not just the Star of Bethlehem. I mean, Ezekiel undoubtedly had a fantastic encounter with a craft, and so too did Moses. And he went up Mount Sinai in a cloud. Well, you can't travel in a cloud. And so on. One can go on and on and on. I mean, it's a better description, mind you, than flying saucer or Tic Tac. We're down to peppermints to describe these craft. Actually, these are glorious craft. Some of the descriptions you get in the Hindu scripts are absolutely beautiful, jewel encrusted, beautiful. And let's not get away. I know there's some dreadful stories, but there's some wonderful stories too of people who've been healed, people who've been inspired by sightings, and sometimes by visitations through the ages.
You bring up a good point, and I'm not in any way attempting to bring all fear here. I'm looking for the answers with what these grays are and what these craft are, and attempting to connect the dots here. But it's interesting you bring that up, because a good friend of mine that I would consider family even, that has had a lifetime of experiences. Her mom has, her sister, one of her kids has had these experiences. And even though some of her experiences are super frightening, she did, like her son that has or had pretty intense autism, very intense, which, it can be a blessing. You just have to figure out how to communicate. And it can be very difficult for the person with autism to communicate.
Yeah.
But we'll put that to the side for a minute. He is doing so much better now when it comes to communication and just being, living a regular life. That you wouldn't even be able to really tell. And he said one day that he goes, they took me and they fixed my head. They fixed my brain.
Right.
And like literally right after that, he switched.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And
I've come across people who've been healed as well. But can I share an unusual thing with you? I'm going again a bit off topic here. But so yesterday I was doing a national TV show over here in the UK. Nice. In the morning, breakfast show, just a short little thing. It's on my website. My website, by the way, is richardlawrence.co.uk. So all Leak Project viewers are really welcome there. If you're interested, have a look, make contact with us. But anyway, before the interview, came the sad news of the terrible news of the murder of Charlie Kirk. You know, this, I actually thought maybe the interview would be cancelled because this was over here as well, not just in America, front page news everywhere. I got up in the morning at about 6:30 to get ready for this interview. And I knew, when I got up, I absolutely knew that Charlie Kirk had had a UFO sighting. I actually had never heard of him before the day before. I had no memory of, I mean, I hadn't been told this, but I was absolutely certain of this. So I then started to look into, I'm not the most internet savvy person in the world. And I found that last October, he did. Not only did he have a UFO sight, I don't know if you knew this, Brett.
Yeah, it was in an airplane.
You know all this. Yeah, and he had this sighting and he filmed it, and it has had millions of views. So actually what happened then, I told the breakfast TV show, and they weaved it into the show, and it all fitted. So I don't know why I tell you that, but you know, that's just, again, part of the, I suppose he was a free, whatever one thinks of his politics, I wouldn't know myself, you know, about that, but he was certainly for free speech, and he spoke out on the topic, and well done him for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, what's unfortunate is the media, like I talked to somebody that I'm really close to last night about that. And, you know, she leans more towards the left as far as the political side of things. So the news that she looks at is typically more towards the left, and that's totally cool. Like, I think that's great. I'm like right in the. I think both sides are corrupt, so I try and stay out of all of it. You know? I'm like,
that's one thing that Dr. King was told, is that politics is not the answer. So yeah,
they call
on that basis, it's sport. It's kind of interesting, but they never seem to solve it, and they won't. But anyway, sorry.
No, that's fine. No, I love the interaction. This is great. This organic conversation is fantastic. But they're called polls of ticks for a reason. But the only reason I brought that up is because the article that she read about Charlie, because she doesn't know anything about him, is like they were taking quotes that might have even been out of context and put it into the newspaper to kind of desensitize certain people towards what happened. And I said, you know what? That's what the news is really good at doing. They'll take something out of context and they'll put it in the paper to make the people that they're placating to, that, you know, that are leaning more towards the left, to desensitize them. But then you'll have the same thing happen on the right. It happens on both sides. So that's why I say, you know, if you want to, it's your choice. But for me personally, I just like to look at it from a Hawkeye view. And I'm not saying I'm better. I just don't want to get involved in it, man, because that's a very draining. Like, well, you know,
people say, why don't politicians come out? You know, why don't presidents come out and admit it? Although I will say that President Trump did start the ball rolling, not in this presidency, in the end of his last one, which led to some of these Congress revelations and so on. He did start that ball rolling on the topic of what they now call UAPs, of course. But you know. That's just a bit of spin as far as I'm concerned, really. It's the same thing. But nevertheless, you know, the politics just isn't going to get to the bottom of our problems. The bottom of our problems is the energy imbalance on this earth. What is required is an output of spiritual energy, which everybody can radiate. You know, we went up a mountain in July. It was about 211 of us, I think, went up this well, it's a hill really in the UK, and we sent out energy. We went there for one reason: to send out energy for peace. Nice. And one of the focuses of that, we use a thing called the 12 blessings. It's just a wonderful practice. I recommend it. It's absolutely beautiful thing. And we do 12 blessings, what are called 12 blessings services. People can join in with them if they want to. They'll find it at the Aetherius Society website. Aetherius is, by the way, Aetherius. People can go there, have a look. But anyway, we went to this hill. We were praying for world peace. And one of the areas, obviously, we focused on was Gaza, and peace and aid in Gaza. Now, it's terrible. Don't get me wrong. It hasn't stopped it by any means. But what I will say is that within hours of that, the human corridors were opened for a period of time. A lot of aid got in and some hostages were released. Now, that wasn't planned. That wasn't on the agenda. That hadn't been announced. They've been trying to bring this about for months and months and months. But a few people working in that way, sending out spiritual energy, using prayer, using mantra. We combine Eastern mantra, Sanskrit mantra, with what you might call Christian prayer, New Age prayer. It doesn't matter. Send the energy out. This is what will solve the world's problems, because the politicians, when are they going to get up one day and think, well, today's a good day to go to the world and say, actually, we've lied to you for decades. We have a lot of information about UFOs. We've actually retrieved UFOs. This isn't good. All they're thinking about is their next election and how they're doing in the polls and what's going to help them in their candidacy. And so, it's amazing that they've got this far. And I will give credit to America. Well done, America, for even having Congress UAP hearings. That's a fantastic thing, which, as I say, the British government isn't near doing.
Yeah. And, we're getting there. It's nice to see these hearings and people in Congress talk about it and at high levels. Now, the next thing we need to do is see if we can get some of it to actually, like, if we can get to the bottom of it, if we can find out where they're coming from, what they want. Like, so what do you think? Like, you talked a bit about this earlier, but somebody left a question in the chat. What is the point of them showing themselves and flying around on our planet? And, are they just doing it to, like you said, show their superiority, or what else is going on here?
What I think they're doing, and this is not just what I think, this is based on the communications with Dr. George King. And he had a tremendous legacy. As I say, he was on call for 24 hours a day for 43 years. All the time he was available, and he stuck to his guns, and his biggest critics would have to admit he absolutely practiced what he preached and he lived it. He was actually a great master of yoga, and he used a form of trance mediumship that I do mediumship myself. I've done it for decades, but it doesn't come close to the type of mediumship he used. That's why they could use him so accurately. So the answer to those questions he was given. And the answer is they come here as part of what you might call a cosmic plan. It's a very subtle plan. They understand our psychology far better than we understand our own psychology. They know the effect they will have upon us. So this has been going on for many thousands of years. They reveal themselves. They help us. They help us immensely. I mentioned Chernobyl. Even according to Pravda, they reduced that fourfold. Would have been far worse than it actually was. But they won't come here, land openly, force us to change and take over the planet. They are not, what we used to call imperialists. They're not trying to gain. They don't want political power. They're not interested. They're only interested in truth. That's all they're concerned with, truth. So, and they're also very aware of how we react to them. I mean, it's not very inviting when you come down and you get a Hellfire missile shot at you. This isn't the best welcome we could give them, is it? Assuming that's genuine footage. Not that it had any effect. As I say, it's like a pebble hitting a car for their point of view. But, they are aware how to them, we are really hostile, really backward, craven, poor, wretched creatures, I would say, who have a very strange thing called war on our planet, and not just one of them. There's no sense in that at all. There's no logic to it. It doesn't help anybody. And then we have this very strange thing called poverty, when there's wealth to go around, and so on and so on. We know it all. We've heard it all before. The answer, as far as they're concerned, is to turn to the inner self and to, above all else, to serve others in whatever way we feel we can. Now, I mentioned one thing, which is sending out spiritual energy. Everyone can do that. Everyone can heal. But if we all started to give service, then they could come closer. If we were really truthful, if governments were truthful, people were open and honest about what's really going on, then they could come closer. And that time will come. But it's very slow. And the reason it's slow is because of us.
I mean, I think that most people, well, maybe not most people, because when I, like, for example, this guy's leaving comments in the comment section right now, and people will say whatever they want on the internet because they think that they can do anything. It's like a bathroom wall on steroids. They don't know who you are, but they come up with these ridiculous, because I said that I think both sides are corrupt. This person thinks that I have a weak mind, and he called me a fascist. So, like, grow up, dude, really. But anyway, so yeah, very, very interesting. But the reason I'm talking, like, people are easy to manipulate. They're easy to control. They're easy to get upset. It's amazing how people will rip into other people on the internet because they think that they're wrong, and they'll say the nastiest, meanest things. But I still want to look at the good in everybody. Like, I think that a lot of people out there are just want to help others. They want to have a, good health. They want to have a beautiful family and provide for their family and friends and have good experiences and memories and be the best that they can be. So, but when I read through posts and social media and the comments people leave, it's kind of scary. Like, people, especially in groups, if they're in fear or if they're uneducated, and I don't mean that in a school sense or a scholarly sense, but uninformed and ignorant, people can be scary. So if I was an extraterrestrial and I was one, well, maybe I am. Yeah, maybe we all are extraterrestrials. I mean, heck, we're the only, we're born on Earth. We need clothes, we need shoes. All these other animals, they don't need that kind of stuff. How come we're the only ones? But anyway, that's a whole other podcast. Like, I wouldn't know if I would want to make myself known, because I can read, like, I can do a podcast and I already know what people are going to say when I do that podcast. Half the comments that are out there, I know what they're going to say before they say it. So if I'm an ET with a super intelligence, am I going to want to disclose myself and put myself at risk for all these crazy people that might think I'm a demon from Zeta Reticuli because of something that's talked about in the scripture? I mean, it's very telling. So I'm just like, what do they do, and what is their purpose? Why do they care? Why the hell do they even care about it?
That's a great question. Do you know they have a thing which is very lacking on Earth, which is love, real love for all life. And they are limited, as far as helping us is concerned, by one thing. I can summarize it in one word. It's a very misunderstood word, but at least it's a word everyone now knows. And that word is karma. And they won't interfere with our karma. They won't come down here and just, as I mentioned earlier, just take over everything, because that will rob us of the greatest thing we have, which is experience. We have to change. But what they do, and it's caused them tremendous suffering, they have sent down what the Hindus used to call avatars. These are like divine incarnations, you might say. Actually, they are cosmic intelligences. So I mentioned some of them already: Jesus, Buddha, Krishna. These are some of our great spiritual figureheads: Moses, Hercules, Confucius, Lao Tse, some of the great figures of history who've come down and given the right guidance at the right time, and not only given the right guidance, performed the right actions which have impacted on humanity in the right way, but they've had to suffer for them the terrible limitation of being born. I mean, these, on other planets, they don't have birth like we have it. Other planets in this solar system, they don't have birth like we have it. They are born through the flame of the planet, and they can live for long periods. We can see examples in the Bible, in the Hindu scripts, of people who lived for very long periods. Enoch, I think, was one in the Bible, and there are a number, Narada and many others in the Hindu scripts, who lived for centuries and centuries. This is called ascension on Earth. There are those who've ascended. They don't no longer need to die, be reborn, and go through reincarnation and so on, because they've cooperated with the force of karma. So they don't need it to work against them. So what's limiting these extraterrestrials is our karma, the karma that we are creating and generating on Earth. And the reason it's so limiting is because human beings are so selfish on the whole. And yes, people can love their families, and this is great, and love their friends, and that's great. But we should have a love for all life on Earth. We're all one. We're all interrelated. And that's how they look upon us. They don't look upon us as, Africans, Europeans. They look upon us as Earth people. Nationhood is a limitation. You know, it's something that we have, and, you know, people can be proud of it. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your nation. I'm not saying that. But as a thing, as a reality, it doesn't exist in the end, because we're all part of one race and we should all come together. And this is their approach, the approach they adopt. And so they're giving, yes, they're showing, as you mentioned, their superior technology. They're sending some of their emissaries through the ages, great intelligences. I've named a few. They come here, and then Dr. George King was one who received a number of communications with great wisdom, absolutely wonderful wisdom, to elevate us, to help us. And this way, we'll change our karma, and then they'll be able to come more openly among us, and we can cooperate more directly with them.
So can you tell us more about where they're at in the solar system? Like, what do you know about this? Because I find this fascinating. And it would make sense to me if we're being so that whole story about how when we started launching nukes and, you know, doing all these nuclear tests and all these ETs or these crafts started showing up, even at like the Trinity blast site, there was supposed to be 3 different craft that showed up during that time. And where am I going with this? Dude, that
was one of their big concerns, Rex, you know, especially in the 50s. They made a number of contacts actually in that period because of that one issue. We had no idea about nuclear experimentation at that time.
But you don't think they're from Zeta Reticuli, do you? Because I don't. I think they'd be a lot closer to, or maybe they have.
I think they're from Mars, from Venus. I mentioned again, Jupiter, Saturn. Yes, there are craft coming from outside the solar system as well. But those who have our interest at heart, and those visitors who come to this solar system from outside of it would respect, as it were, the territorial, it's the wrong phrase this, but the territorial governance, or whatever you want to call it, of beings in this solar system to deal with a planet. We are the 6th planet of the solar system. For a start, you know, a lot of people don't, although actually I did see another poll from Britain this year, actually, from YouGov, that 70% of British people believe in aliens. It could be even higher in America. So this didn't used to apply. I mean, I've seen a massive change since I started speaking on this topic. But they come, to answer your question, they come from these planets. They come to help us, lift us up, but they won't, as I say, interfere with us. So the question is, what can we do? What we can do is cooperate with them as best we can, and with their plans and their missions for our world.
When do you think that'll happen?
This, again, depends on us. I mean, we're coming to a crisis. You know, we've had nuclear war on Earth before. I certainly believe the Mahabharata is a description of a nuclear war. According to the Mahabharata, 1.6 billion people died. So that isn't, I don't think we've had 1.6 billion people on the planet in known history. So it certainly wasn't a local Indian conflict somewhere. It was written up in India, probably much, much later. But it's an ancient nuclear conflict, and, you know, it's now returned to us again, potentially. We live in a very dangerous time again. So it's how we deal with this. There are many, many prophecies, aren't there, from many traditions, all of which agree on a couple of things. One of which is we're going to have a horrendous, dangerous time with flooding, with natural disasters, with climate change, with more earthquakes. Now, we can see this happening. A lot of these things, this was prophesied. And then after this very dangerous period, with some kind of battle between dark forces and forces of light, then there'll be a wonderful new heavenly age, which will come. Now, the exact time of it depends on us. But the more positive spiritual energy we put out, by the way, even investigating great truth, studying great wisdom, this is adding to the mindset of the world as a whole. You might be doing it for your own education, but you're feeding the mindset with positive energy when you do that. That too can bring change. If we feed it with fear, that can be sensed. I run a lot of psychic workshops, Rex, here in London. We had over 100 people at a workshop here the other day, and everyone in the room pretty much said they could feel under certain guidance. And this were new people. They weren't people who were psychics or anything. They'd just come along to try it. Most of them were new, and they could sense the energies in various ways of other people. We can pick this up. This is going on all the time. People use psychic words like, I picked up your thought, I picked up your vibe, I've got a funny feeling in my mouth, I've got a funny taste in my mouth. These are all psychic impressions that people are getting. But everything we do, and every time we raise our consciousness to higher thought, we affect the whole. We affect all life. And it will feed, as it were, the mindset of this world with positive energy. And this is what we need to change the karma of humanity.
You know what we should do? I was talking to my friend Angela about this yesterday. We should pick a date to do a meditation, and promote it as, you know, far and wide, and put our hands in water, whether it's the ocean or the river or a sink or a puddle. I mean, whatever. If we can spend 1 minute, as many people at the same time, maybe even like do a test experiment 10 days from now, try it out. But if we should write up an outline what we think, like, you know, so as we're thinking or we're doing this meditation, we've got this certain words, this certain what's positive affirmation or something like that to make change. So, and if we all do it at the same time, if we can get 100,000 people to do this meditation at the exact same time with the exact same thoughts and the exact same affirmations, and actually connecting to the earth by, you know, putting our feet in the sand or our feet in the dirt, touching a tree, hugging a tree, putting our hands in the water, whatever. I think that would be a way to test the waters, literally and metaphorically speaking. And maybe even, you know, I don't know if we need to ask for like intervention per se, but just send out thanks and gratitude. What are your thoughts about something
wonderful?
Like that?
I think that's wonderful. I've got a book here, and it's called The 12 Blessings. I mentioned it earlier, and it says, make your brain live in everlasting thankfulness for experience. Now, that's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you're going through tough times. But if you can do it, it's a wonderful energy. Thankfulness is a wonderful energy. Humility is a very powerful force. What we also need to do is find peace within ourselves. And everybody can do that. And there's some absolutely beautiful, beautiful phrases in here. May I just read you an example?
Please, yeah, I'd love to hear them.
So this is from the third blessing. The third blessing is, blessed are they who love. And the Master Jesus, who channeled this through Dr. King in 1958 in London here, and then Dr. King later went to America, but he said this. So I'm reading this to you now. Walk ye into peace, request it gently, for it falleth even as the gentle rain from heaven. Let it flow. Offer to this wondrous power no resistance, but let it flow through you all now. Every cell of your body will rejoice. Every part of you will be happy neath this light. For, dear friends, adorable children, first cometh the angel peace to make way for the goddess love. Open up the door, let peace enter in, then will come the other in splendor to live forever within your soul. I mean, I think that's just a beautiful passage, and it's true. I don't think people realize, I bet there's a lot of probably people who may be watching now who are stressed in their lives. Who doesn't get stressed sometimes in their lives? And what we tend to forget is that peace is something we can call upon. You know, because I've written a lot of books, I do book signings sometimes. And sometimes I do it, say, in Borders Bookshop in a busy, you know, in Oxford Street in London. It's a very busy central place. And I'll go into the shop and I'll get people to just sit down. And this is a sort of rush hour time, sort of in the evening. Sit down in a busy shop in the West End of London and just start to breathe deeply. I'll those who want to join in, I just say, close your eyes, put your hands on your knees, facing downwards, and just breathe deeply. And when you do breathe deeply, try and make your in-breath and your out-breath as even as you can. Now, that's as simple as it gets. Make the breath as long as you can. Have the mouth closed if you can, unless you've got nasal congestion, have the mouth closed and breathe in and out. And then after a couple of minutes of this, and all the while there's people walking around the shop buying books in other parts and etc. It's right near an underground tube station, all the rest of it. There we are, like 50 people, maybe 60, in this bookshop, sitting down, breathing deeply and evenly. And then I'll say to them, they've got their eyes closed, I'll say, if you feel at peace now, just raise your hand. And if you don't raise your hand. And I've done this more than once, and nearly all of them in that busy, thriving hubbub of a place raise their hand. And they haven't done anything other than sit down and breathe deeply, in and out. Now, if you add to that what the Master Jesus says here, you call upon peace, you request it gently, because it's an energy, it's a force. It's not something that you just hope, oh, will I feel peaceful tomorrow if I do that? Well, it's something you can bring about within your life. And then you can open up the door to real love, which is love for all life, whoever it might be, whatever it might be. And this is a wonderful energy. And that's why the third blessing is blessed are they who love, because it's quite rare to find people who will love all life. But we've all got it in us. We can all do it, and it's liberating. As you said earlier, if we have thankfulness, it's difficult to do sometimes, particularly when you feel you're being maltreated, it's a hard time and all the rest of it. But if you can, because we're the masters of our own consciousness, we can switch it on, we can switch it off. As I mentioned, I train people in psychic powers, but I also train them to control it. You've got to be able to when I got up yesterday morning, I knew, I hadn't been told, I didn't even know anything about it, but I knew that this man, Charlie Kirk, had a UFO sighting. And so I went in, and everyone, that's not a big thing, but, people will know sometimes that they pick up such and such a person. I must call them now. They've got no reason to call them, but they call them at that moment. Again, this is in the mind belt. This is in the ethers. And the person says, thank God you called. I was in a terrible state, and, et cetera, et cetera. We know cases like it, but we're not attuned to it. Now, the higher powers, the higher intelligences, they are attuned to it. They're attuned to it whether they're in advanced technology or not. They know when an American jet's going to fire at them before the jet fires at them. And they know what to do about it.
Do you think it's technology or their evolution, or both?
Well, they have a power over matter. Yeah, they have a power. They're both. I mean, they have what we would call telepathy anyway. Mm-hmm. So they could do that. Sure, they could find out that way, as great yogis of old and so on could do. But also, I'm sure they can use technology to do it. They could monitor a craft over a distance. We haven't scratched the surface on what they could do in their craft. They control gravity completely. They can travel through the dimensions. They aren't limited to this dimension. I mean, there are people who have so-called died who haven't died. Nobody dies. The body dies. People go on. I've had contact with people who've died, and I bet you a lot of your viewers have. It's not the most complicated thing in the world at all. Some people will have an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience.
I've had out-of-body experiences.
Well, there you are. Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. So So you leave the physical body, you still exist in your, what you might call it, your astral body, your auric body, whatever you want to call it. There is life beyond the physical. And that's why we can't necessarily detect life on Mars and Venus and Jupiter, because they aren't necessarily living on this level at all. They're on higher levels. Why would they want to be on this level? Unless we have the technology or the advancement to detect them, we won't detect them. But, we're so foolish on this earth because we have this attitude, look, if I can't live there, nobody can. We're looking for planets that could sustain life, the so-called Goldilocks formula and all the rest of it. They've got to have the same conditions for life as we have. It's not that different from the time when we thought the whole universe revolved around the Earth. That's only 400 or 500 years ago. And now we think, oh, no, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm sorry, too. I was just going to say, now there's people that think the Earth's flat. Again, like, come on, really? So, yeah.
So now it's like, look, unless they've got the same conditions as us, the same water, the same distance from the sun in there, they can't live at all. Oh, no, we're the only ones who can live. Although they now know there are many, many planets out there who've got life as we know it, potentially. So that's been gone by the board. But it's this sort of egocentric mentality of human beings, rather than the humility to recognize and to thank and to revere and to respect these wonderful intelligences. They are wonderful. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and we create the religious barriers. You don't have to call it God or by any other name. You call it your own higher self if you want to, but it does exist. And so, I think this is the way forward. And when we start to take that sort of approach, then they'll come closer to us because they'll be able to. They won't be interfering with us. They won't force us to change.
Well, I mean, that makes me think of freedom of action, and some people think that we're born into a reality where everything's already predestined, and maybe it is, but the thing I have to say to that is, if everything's already predestined, then what the hell is the point?
Well, yeah, that's what I always say, because as I mentioned, I've done a lot of psychic stuff, and I've done a lot of radio shows, like mainstream radio shows with other psychics, and some of them I wouldn't call them psychics, I'd call them fortune tellers. And if it was fortune telling, I wouldn't be interested at all. The whole purpose of the whole thing is to help people to make changes. We can change our karma. The world can change its karma. And this is wonderful news. This is a very, very liberating thing. So I agree with you that it's not all predestined. We're here to make our karma, and we can change it. But you mentioned freedom. We had a series of communications from an intelligence from Mars by the name of Mars Sector 6, or that was his given name or his code name, whatever you want to say. And it's called the 9 Freedoms. And of those 9 freedoms, the first freedom is bravery. So, again, it's overcoming this fear, which does exist, and it's fed and it's encouraged by certain forces, including financial forces, including political forces on Earth. And we don't want to be foolhardy, but we can overcome this, and it tells us how we can overcome it.
Man, I would be so excited to meet somebody from Mars. I think that's like where I think I lived on Mars in a past life. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's too much total recall.
Funny you should say that, because they find, haven't they, now that they, like this week, I think NASA has come out and said, there's microbial life. There was civilizations there in the past, and there was life there, and conditions for life. But I was watching a thing about that today, and they said also they found a lot of the asteroids, from the asteroid belt. Those have the conditions not just for life, microbial life, but for the life means of the biological life as we have on Earth. They think. Now, this is interesting, because one of the things Dr. King always said is that the asteroid belt was a planet, and it was destroyed by nuclear conflict on that planet. And guess who were the people there who did this? Us. And so that's why we came here. And it's said to be, and in theosophical writings, actually, they date it down to 18 million years ago, roughly, thereabouts. And that's what happened. And then we built up a civilization known as Lemuria or Mu. Again, nuclear catastrophe. Then Atlantis. I mentioned the Mahabharata. I think that's the end period of Atlantis. And here we are again, with nuclear threats being made, even in this year, between superpowers. It's ridiculous. To an interplanetary person, it's tragic, because they do care. You asked a very good question. Why do they care? They care about us more than we care about each other, which is extraordinary, actually. I'm now talking about the benign intelligences in this solar system. They really do care. They'll sacrifice for us. But as I keep saying, there is a thing called karma, and this they won't go against. So they won't force us to change. But they certainly do. So we built up these civilizations, and here we are again. And it is ridiculous, really. Our history is absurd when you look at it that way. Why we behave the way we do, and to them, we're the aliens. To them, it's like a completely alien mentality with no logic at all, but they still care.
So there must be some type of spiritual connection or soul connection, I would think.
Yeah.
Unless they just look at us like pets, and they're like, those stupid dogs and cats again, they're getting into it again. We got to go calm them down. Let's, we can't, if they're going to eat each other, we can't completely stop them, but we can at least maybe drop some bones.
Well, they help. They definitely help minimize particularly some of the radioactive releases. They've directly helped to minimize. They haven't removed them, but they've helped us. And funnily enough, Dr. King reported actually back in the 50s, he reported on 2 accidents. One was in a place called Sellafield in England, the north of England, was then called Windscale. And he actually sent communications from Mars, you can imagine how that went down, to every member of parliament at the time. This would be 1957, I believe, and warned them and told them what had happened. And it was completely denied and laughed at and so forth. And now we find the incidence of leukemia there, just as he'd warned, the incidence of cancer there, and things is far worse, far worse than national average. I remember actually, I went along to a newspaper. You mentioned newspapers earlier. I went to the board of a newspaper in the 80s, and I had absolute proof that what Dr. King had said about Windscale actually came true. And when I presented the truth to 1 or 2 of the editorial board at this national newspaper in Britain, what they used to call Fleet Street over here, used to be the center of all our newspapers here. This is one of the most honest journalists I've come across, Rex. He said this. He said to me, Richard, what do you want from us? He said, what do you want? He was almost like appealing to me. He said, we're not here to tell the truth. We're here to tell the truth that people want to read. That was a very honest remark, actually. And of course, we know that's the case. I mean, you take this clip that you showed today, that should have been on the front page of every paper. But over here, what was on the front page of every paper? Pretty much, how is Prince Harry getting on with Prince William?
Oh, how sweet.
That's the big news. Are they talking or are they not talking? Not as an extraterrestrial craft being bombed by a Hellfire missile and it's bounced off. And this is the state of humanity.
This is the state of humanity at the mainstream level. And I've got a theory about this. So whatever it is, there's got to be something not human that is trying to prevent us from reaching a higher level, whether it's alien or some ancient humanoid from this planet that figured out how to extend its life or something, or some type of artificial intelligence or simulation. But it seems like there's something that doesn't want humanity to reach that higher level. And I don't necessarily think it's
from
just
this earth. From this earth. Yeah, I believe.
So
I agree with you.
Well, I mean, there could be what if there's a disgruntled ET that's running the show here and knows about that?
It wouldn't be allowed. It wouldn't be allowed by these benign intelligences that I mentioned to you. If it was, I mean, I'm not saying there haven't been negative ETs here, but it would be monitored. It would be known, and it could only get so far, on Earth without them intervening, even if we didn't even know they'd intervened. But from this Earth, though, if it's a force from this Earth, and there are such forces who definitely don't want us to advance, this is one of the reasons they've tried to cause so much confusion in the UFO movement and and feed fear into the movement. Because they don't want truth to come out, because they want control. And so, some of them, they're beyond politicians. Politicians are like babies to them. They'll manipulate them, but they're not the real force. Financiers, are closer to it. They're more powerful. I mean, the real cutting edge financiers, but they're even beyond that. I would say they're even beyond this physical realm, some of them, but they're very much from this earth. So you've got that, but you've also got wonderful intelligences. Let me just name one wonderful intelligence from this earth. I'll name two, actually. I'll name the Lord Babaji, who's a wonderful intelligence. He's not from this earth, but he lives on this earth. And thank God he does, because we'd be in real trouble if he didn't. Another one who's better known in the West, Count Saint Germain, lived for hundreds of years on earth, on this physical level. And he's very much around. There's just two examples. So we have forces of light, you could say, and I'm not sure whether you say this now, but negative forces or forces of darkness, whatever you call it, as well. And they're the movers and the shakers. It's not your average politician. It's not your average high court judge who may make bad decisions or good ones, but they're interchangeable. And if it wasn't one, it would be another. It's some of these forces. And of course, when we start to break free from conditioning, what they call the matrix, and when we turn to the light of something like the 12 blessings, which I read from earlier, as an example, it's not the only thing by any means. When we start to send out spiritual light, then we will start to be cooperators with the forces of light. And then we'll start to really make a change, and it'll alter the karma of Earth. And there is nothing that any politician, any financier, or even any dark force can do to combat the power, the ultimate power of karma.
Right on, right on. Well, and just a couple more things before we finish this up. I know we were going to go about an hour. We've gone a little bit over, but I've just really enjoyed this conversation. It's been nice. It's been great, man. Dude, you're cool. You're cool.
Well, you have to forgive me. I just say as I feel it. I don't expect everyone to believe me. That's fine, or agree with me. That's fine. Yeah. But thanks for hearing me out. And I invite people again, come to richardlawrence.co.uk and have a look. Make contact if you're interested, or even better, go to aetherius.org and you'll find you can even hear some of these recordings that I mentioned of trans-medium communications from Mars, from Venus, from Jupiter, even from Saturn. We have a cloud audio service which you can subscribe to if you like, and you can hear it. You can hear the 9 freedoms, you can hear the 12 blessings, and you can certainly hear Dr. King, who was outstanding. I mean, I knew him really well. I was very close to him, and he was the real thing. He was a true master. I don't even believe he came from this planet. He didn't used to claim that, but that's my own belief. So I co-authored his biography with my good friend Brian Kniep over in America. It's called The King Who Came to Earth. We've got an audiobook version, and you can hear the transmissions or extracts from them, and you can hear Dr. King's voice rather than just me and Brian reading it. You get the original source material. I think it's a unique audiobook, actually, Rex. I don't know of another one like it. The King Who Came to Earth.
I like that. The King Who Came to Earth. Gotta love it. And the last name, I mean, if you have the last name King,
exactly,
you're going places. I'm just saying. that's pretty cool.
You know what he used to say? He used to say it's a Chinese word, King.
Ah.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it has meaning that we know of, but in the West. But he said originally it's Chinese.
This is. I also wanted to show people. I showed off your website, the Aetherius Society, folks.
Thank you.
Check us out on Rumble, because we live stream on Rumble, and it'll take you 30 seconds. It's totally free. Just go to Leak Project Rumble. You can see, hit the subscribe button. They do a pretty good job of sending notifications. There's a lot of people that say, Rex, I haven't seen a notification in months, and I looked at your page, and you've done hundreds of videos. So, I don't know why, but make sure here on YouTube, you click the bell for all notifications and just check back daily for new content. We also do exclusive content on Patreon, ad-free, uncensored, and some of the more heated topics and discussions that we can actually talk about over there on Patreon. So just check us out there as well. But in finishing, I got to say, this has been awesome. So awesome.
Oh, it's been great to see you again, my friend. Thank you for inviting me. I always love coming on the Leak Project. It's a great thing. Thank you it's a champion of free speech, the very name, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Freedom.
And this was a leak, wasn't it? This film footage that we showed at the beginning, that was a leak, really, in a way.
I mean, I think so. I wasn't the first
Yeah.
one to release it, but I'll tell you what, the 3i Atlas, and there's a bunch of people asking about this.
Yeah.
We have a NASA contractor / rocket scientist that holds a Guinness record for launching a rocket into space so far from like an amateur rocket. His name's Greg Allison. He's in the chat right now. We did a video yesterday or a couple of days ago on 3i Atlas, and he gave his idea on that. So people were saying, Rex, what do you think of this 3i Atlas? And 3i, it doesn't stand for your third eye. I noticed somebody left in the comment, they're like, does 3i stand for your third eye, Comet? It doesn't.
Third eye is wonderful, but yeah, I know what you mean.
The reason it's called 3i Atlas is because it's the third object that's been discovered that is considered an interstellar object. So that's the 3i. And the Atlas, the first telescope to observe it was Atlas. So that's why it's called 3i Atlas. Folks, it's weird. It's weird. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a mothership, and I wouldn't be surprised if
it's interesting you say that, because Dr. King did say, well, I think about another comet many years ago, that it was a craft virtually, or on it was traveling a great karmic being, a great intelligence. And maybe that's the case, and it could be a wonderful influence. And I think it's good to also, what I think is nice is, because you get these fearful stories and these dark stories. I'm not belittling them. I know people have difficult experiences. I'm not taking away from that or saying they're fake or anything like that. But it is great to put out a positive message about the glory of these intelligences. These are beautiful, elevated, timeless beings. I mean, on Saturn, you have the most advanced intelligences in this solar system, barring only the sun. And these are very wise beings, and only two of them that I know of have actually come and resided on Earth. One was Sri Krishna, and what a mission he had to perform. My goodness. Without him, I don't know what would have happened. And the other is the one I mentioned earlier, the very great Lord Babaji.
Nice. That's what I'm talking about. Well, folks, but don't be surprised if the interstellar comet's just a really weird comet either. That's what I was going to say. I'm not going to, it could be a mothership. It could be high intelligence. It could be I don't think it's just the comet, flying dirty space balls. Things moving 130,000 miles an hour. That's a fast space ball, man. Snowball. That's a hell of a snowball. But we've got the Aetherius Society in here as well. And a lot of people are asking us to do this meditation. I think that I
would like, and I don't know whether you're up for this, but if you ever want a healing meditation, or if people want to join in with something and send energy out for the world and for themselves, we'd be delighted to do that if that's something the Leak Project want. I've done it on mainstream radio and TV over here. And we've had some amazing results, and people phone in and they describe their experiences. And some people have said they were completely healed. I did a radio show once over here, and somebody had dystonia. You know that condition. Where it's a condition where people can't stop the involuntary movement of their muscles in their body and so on. And we did this healing thing over the air. It was a radio show. And it's a 3-part healing technique, which I devised, and they did it. It's not, but it's based on other things, and they did it. And this person said they were completely cured there and then on radio. And another one where I was up in a place called Manchester in the north of England, and I did a show there, and there was somebody listening who wanted to they said later they decided to take their own life. And they put all the pills out. They were ready to do it, but they had the radio on. And in this radio show I was doing, we were talking about karma, actually. I'd written a book called Little Book of Karma. You may have heard of it, I don't know. But anyway, the pills were out. This woman had decided to take her life. And she said, as I was talking on the radio about karma, a light, it's not someone I know at all, never met her in my life. A light came on. She said, it was like a physical light came into the room. And she threw away the pills and decided to live. And she phoned the radio station. They got her into counseling. And every time I went up there to do a show every year, she'd ring in. So I'm still here. I'm getting better. It's beautiful. And there's beautiful things people can do. Everyone can heal. Every listener of the Leak Project, every viewer can heal if they want to. heal themselves and heal others and heal the world.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's heal the world, folks. Let's
Heal
do
the
it.
world. Let's do it.
And let's have some fun while we're doing it. And I'm just going to throw
Yeah.
this out there. We're going to do the first meditation for water. We're going to test the waters on this. I'm sure we're going to do many more. But there's an equinox coming up.
Right.
So
yes. Where are we? Yeah, be about the 21st of September.
Yeah.
Is it? Somewhere around there. Yeah. Yeah.
The 21st. So
Autumn equinox. Yeah.
Everybody that's in here, September 21st, we're gonna do this this water experiment. I'm gonna look up on the chart to see what the best, like the planetary chart, because if you study the occult, that just means the unknown, or ancient hermetics. Let's just use the term hermetics.
It's hidden, doesn't it? Occult means hidden.
Yeah, that's all it means.
It doesn't mean anything bad.
No. But hermetics is like just an ancient. It's a way of life, actually, and each day is governed by a specific planet. Like Monday would be the moon, Tuesday would be Mars, Thursday's Jupiter, Sunday's the sun. So I'll look at and each hour is governed by a specific planet, and so there's certain attributes that each planet and hour has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up the best time on the 21st to do this meditation, and I'll promote the heck out of it. And we'll do it.
Good
on
luck
the
with that. That sounds fantastic. And you need the French. You need French because their names, they're based on the planets, aren't they? So Mercredi, I think that's Mercury, and Mercury Day, I think, and Jeudi, I think, is Jupiter. I might be completely wrong. I'm just throwing that out.
That sounds right. No, let's do a follow-up.
I think is Venus.
What did you say?
Saturday is Saturn Day.
Yeah,
I believe.
Absolutely.
Check it out. I remember hearing that somewhere in school, probably.
Well, you're 100% right. Saturn Day.
Yeah,
that's why many religions worship on.
The best one is Sunday, because we owe everything to the sun. We are solidified sunlight. That's all we are. That's what we are. Master Aetherius, original. We're all solidified sunlight, and that's all we are.
I love it. The future's so bright. You got to wear shades, Richard. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you everybody for being here with us. Have a beautiful day and be the change you want to see.